What's Buzzin' Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Degnan, and along with me, Michael Fraley. No Mort today. He can't be here with us, so it's just Mike and I, the dynamic duo. Um, so today it's Knives Out. Knives Out review, another movie review. I didn't see this movie until quarantine started. I watched it like late March for the first time. When was the first time you saw it, Mike?
So I saw this. Let's see. It came out on Thanksgiving week. I think I saw it like the week after that. So right around the time it released. I saw it in theaters, obviously. And yeah.
I mean, I didn't see. Okay, so I heard like all the good reviews and all that, and I just like purposely chose to tune it out, mostly because for the longest time, I held a grudge against this movie, mostly because of the director, Rian Johnson, because he ruined Star Wars.
Ruin Johnson, as they call him, as many Star Wars fans call him.
I mean, he ruined Star Wars, but after seeing this movie, I saw that he can make good movies. So I really like this movie. I think this is one of the most rewatchable movies. I think it's also like one of the best mysteries of this century thus far. I mean, I haven't watched a lot, but it reminded me a lot of some of the like Clue from like the 1970s, which was
it's basically like Clue in a movie.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. I really liked it. What do you think of it, Mike?
Well, I mean, before we get into our reviews, though, one thing we wanted to start doing at the beginning of these movie episodes, we wanted to start kind of integrating some current events or some current news in the movie world, which we'll start with today. So the first thing that we had that's newsworthy of late is that Jamie Foxx is going to be playing Mike Tyson in a Mike Tyson biopic.
That's gonna be
Now,
so.
I don't know about you, but I think this is quite possibly the perfect casting because Jamie Foxx. I've seen videos of him like doing interviews, pretend like talking like Mike Tyson. He's the lisp and everything. He's doing it like perfectly. He also looks a lot like Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Oh, I think this will be pretty good.
I think so too. I saw this thing on Twitter that it was from I don't know 5 or 6 years ago, and he was doing an interview talking about his dream opening for the Mike Tyson movie, and the way he told, because he speaks like he's a movie buff. He knows so much, and the way he talked about that scene just like sold me right away. And this was 5 or 6 years ago. And also his like I agree with you, Mike. I think this honestly is one of the most perfect castings we've seen. Like you said, he's got the lisp down. He's got like the high pitched voice, or like, really soft demeanor.
Soft voice, yeah.
Yeah. And he also said he's gonna put on like 40 or 50 pounds to play Mike.
I'll just say, like, I would be shocked if he doesn't nail this. I think he's gonna nail this.
He's definitely gonna nail this.
I have high hopes for this whenever this comes out. I think this could be a fantastic movie.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good. I'm excited.
So yeah, we have that. The other thing, AMC theaters reopening. I forget what was the day.
July 16th.
Yeah, July 16th. They said they're going to follow all the guidelines, health and restrictions, which it'll be interesting to see how that pans out as far as how many people they can actually have in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that'll be different. But the big reason I want to bring this up is Christopher Nolan's new movie Tenet, which is supposed to release July 31st, I think, is what it got pushed back to. I'm interested to see how many people are actually going to go out and see that, because it's probably like it's the big summer blockbuster, or was supposed to be. Obviously it's Christopher Nolan movie. It looks pretty much just like Inception, except more time travel, I guess, more to do with time instead of just dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So it's supposed to be the big summer blockbuster, and he's been determined to keep it in theaters instead of digital release, which makes sense because judging by it how it looks, it kind of seems like Inception, which is something that's probably a lot better in theaters than on like your computer or home TV. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I don't know about you.
I've not seen enough Christopher Nolan movies. I haven't seen Inception. I haven't seen, other than his Batman movies, like I haven't seen much. So I'm not like super excited for this movie, but I am glad that the theaters are opening up, and I trust that AMC will do a good job of, you know, following the guidelines and having people wear masks and like
Yeah.
limit the amount of people that they can have in the theaters. I just think opening up theaters um, is just another step back to normalcy, I guess, and it feels good because
Yeah.
I haven't been in a movie theater in the longest time, and who knows, maybe later this summer I kind of want to go to maybe see Tenet or maybe see, I don't know, another movie like that in theater. So I'm actually really excited that it's opening up, but we'll see how it goes because nobody
Yeah.
knows at this point.
All right. So that's kind of our daily news roundup for movies in the past week. So let's get into it. Knives Out. Yeah, as you were saying earlier, you said you like this movie a lot. The first time I saw it in theaters, I liked it. I had some problems with it, which we can get into later, that I still kind of have.
Mhm.
Watching it for a second time, I like it a bit more. I think this is a super rewatchable movie, even though I would not put it in like the upper echelon of like all my movies or all
Mhm.
my favorite movies. It's pretty good. It's pretty damn entertaining. It's kind of got like not as good as Get Out, but it's got a Get Out style of foreshadowing in the beginning. Like the
Mhm.
first hour, I think the first hour or 45 minutes is like perfectly done. I know you probably feel the same way.
Yeah. Can we go scene by scene? So I think the movie opens up with, doesn't it open up?
It's like a bunch of shots of the house, pretty
Yeah.
much. And this is one thing I want to touch on real quick. Like the set design of the house, all the costume designing is like
It's
it's pretty fantastic.
perfect.
Yeah.
It feels so real and authentic. It feels like this is actually Harlan's house, and it feels like this house has been there for centuries. Again, the house looks very similar to like it's or to Clue. Like there's so many similarities. I watched Clue a lot when I was younger with my family. So that's the movie I directly compare it to, and I think Ryan Johnson is probably going for a similar vibe as
Yeah.
well. But the house is it's so haunting yet like familiar, if that makes sense. I don't know. I really like the set design and the way that opening scene was shot. Um, it was so well done, and the cinematography throughout is so great. Like it's, again, Mike, we've had this conversation before. I've talked to Zach, who's been on the show, about this before as well. Um, Movies are just getting better with time, and I feel like I say this, like, the plot of some movies are sometimes hit or miss, but consistently the set design, the cinematography, the
Yeah.
acting is just
That's
all
yeah.
so good.
That's the thing I love about recent movies and why I love watching recent movies compared to like 80s or 90s. It's just all that. It's like the way it looks when you're watching it.
Hmm.
That's the most, I mean, it's not the most important part because you have good plot, good characters.
Hmm.
That's like the most attractive part of watching a movie.
Hmm. Because
That's
I mean, they've had so much time in practice. I mean, they've seen so many movies. They know what works. They know what doesn't work, and so directors are able to master their craft of making aesthetically pleasing shots, aesthetically pleasing sets. So where it's easy on the eye for the viewers, so that they can fall into like and love it, fall in love with the story that much more.
yeah. So yeah, a bunch of opening shots or opening shots of the house, the set looks beautiful. Um, I think it starts off at Marta's house with her family.
Hmm.
It's a good comparison because it shows you like Harlan's house and their family's house, and then Marta's house, which is just like, pretty much regular, nothing special to it.
Yeah.
And then
Um.
it gets
What?
right into questioning right after that.
Yeah. That. this is one of my favorite parts of the movie.
This is fantastically done. So it's like all the siblings, Linda, Richard, and Walt.
Hmm.
Um, what's not one of their siblings? Joni, is it?
I think it's Joni, the aunt,
Yeah.
who's trying to be like hip and cool and feels, again, all these characters feel so real, which is
All
why
the
it just
actors are
works so
fantastic.
well.
They do a fantastic job of playing all these characters.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things I'll keep mentioning is you really buy that this is a family. You buy
Hmm.
that these people are related and that they care about each other and also hate each other at the same time. So yeah, it's kind of they start by talking about like how all these different or how all Harlan's kids are related to him, like how tight they are with him, what they do in their lives. And there's this funny a couple of them when they're talking about Marta's family when they're asked about Marta, like, oh, she's from Paraguay, she's from Ecuador.
Yeah, that's one of the running gags of the movie, and I thought that was so funny. Like every time, it's just so funny because it just shows like how
Yeah,
distant they are from Marta, and they just don't care, and they act like they care. Like especially when she finds out that she's been given the will, and all of them like try and like be kind and like suck up to her. Like it just shows that they're all in it for the money, which is just
so, yeah. I think this is good because I don't think anything's like in the first like 20 minutes. I don't think anything's too important. It just does a good job of setting up the dynamic in their family.
yeah. And this is also like this is the perfect way to do exposition. You know, set them up in an interview setting, which makes sense because you got Blanc and who's Daniel Craig again, great performance, and then you got the other two detectives who are also great, and you know you have like the little name cards on the left, which just like
Yeah.
it's one of those things that like shouldn't work, but it works, which is
It
just
gives you the classic murder mystery feel.
hmm
That's what's great.
and you're able to see like who all these characters are, and you get the feel for like their personality traits and whatnot. But then they also set up like potential motives for each and every character,
Yeah.
which again like keeps you on edge. I feel like for the most of the movie, like you're theorizing like who could have who could have done this and whatnot. And
Yeah. So I mean, so what is it? It's like Walt because he gets fired. He's doing the
yeah, he
recount,
was fired or he was let go of the from
but he
the
doesn't really tell the
hotel.
cops that. He doesn't tell them that. He's like, oh, we just had a discussion.
Yeah,
But so he gets fired. Um, Harlan says he's gonna cut off Joni's payments.
yeah, for school, and
Yeah.
like she can't pay for Meg's school.
She was I forget how she was doing it exactly, but she was basically like
Oh, she was spending money on personally that was supposed to go to Meg's private education.
yeah. And then Richard with his affair.
Hmm.
Um Also another good scene too is when he walks into he like breaks into Harlan's desk and like opens the letter, nothing's there.
Yeah,
Address that to the very end. How
yeah,
it's just invisible ink. But yeah, great character exposition here. Normally I'm against like these character dumps and things in the beginning of the movie because I think it just doesn't it's just kind of lazy, but it works really well.
it does work really well.
It works very well here. So then they kind of do the intro to Blanc when she's like, I read a New Yorker article about you, whatever. Um,
The way he was sitting in that scene was so it was so creepy because like I didn't know because I knew nothing about this movie going in. I thought that Daniel Craig's character Blanc was the bad guy at first, and I thought he was gonna have like a British accent because Daniel Craig is British. So when he's sitting in the shadows and then comes out like speaking in that southern drawl, and first off, he does that so well. Like it feels comical yet really authentic,
yeah.
and like the way he was like shot in the shadows, and you could see half his face, and like I don't know, just little stuff like that. Like it made me think like, okay, Ryan Johnson actually knows what he's doing with this movie, and I kind of bought into it at that point.
Yeah. So Daniel Craig, fantastic job as the lead. I would say he's probably the lead. Either him or Marta, but
Yeah,
both of them. So he does a great job. He starts asking them to give recounts of what happened the night of the party. And the thing I like about this is there's all these little details because each recount is slightly different.
mm-hmm.
it's like whether who's standing next to him when they give him the cake, like what Harlan's mom says to Ransom when he leaves.
Yeah.
It's all those little things like that, which I think is just it's great, especially for a murder mystery
So
because
much
it's
attention to detail.
yeah, you see, and you're like there we go. Um, but yeah, and then the funny part is when they're talking to Walt, they're all hating on Walt.
I know. It was poor Walt throughout. Walt was just trying to like make money, just like writing books or publishing books. He just got fired, and then everyone hates him now.
And then one of the housekeepers heard Richard yelling at or getting in a screaming match with Harlan before the party happened. So a bunch of great little details to set up each character. Um, so then after that, they do a good job establishing some motives. Then Blanc meets Marta for the first time. And this is one problem I had with this movie. It's the throw up when lying.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
I feel like that's just a plot device. Like you can hide it as much as you want, but that's just like I feel like that's kind of a cheap way to get some things in the plot to happen,
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. I mean, it takes itself seriously, but it also doesn't take itself super seriously, if you know what I mean. And that's kind of one of the reasons why, because I mean, it's a comedy at the end of the day. And so if they have, and I don't think, like I said earlier, the movie's not trying to take itself too seriously to become this like super intense murder mystery. It's a lighthearted family mystery, which actually has a really good plot. And so I don't mind the puking thing, but I understand where you're coming from with that. Like it's definitely a little forced, but I mean, I think it's a little believable because we see that how, naive and caring Marta is. So like, it kind of makes sense for her character, but.
Yeah. So then Blanc kind of keeps asking her, he asks her because he kind of deduces pretty quickly that like, all the other people that he just interviewed are lying in some sense. So he figures out that Richard is having an affair. I think he figures out that he's cutting off Joni too from the allowance and that he's firing Walt, which just, I mean, I kind of forget how he does it exactly, but it's like, it's really brilliant how he figures out each one of these things. Like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
The thing with Blanc is that like, something I noticed throughout the movie, like he acts like an idiot because he's like singing around, like being really goofy, talking in a southern drawl, cracking jokes. Like you think if you just see him, you like he acts a little goofy and kind of dumb, but then there's like flashes of brilliance where he like cracks 3 cases. You know what I mean, with those 3 siblings, and then we'll get into this at the end. But his final monologue was just so good, and it was so. I don't know. Daniel Craig just did a great job with that.
yeah. So then they kind of switched to the night. Like what was everyone doing during the night? And they set it up. They have like Linda waking up like 3 times during the night, and then Joni waking up once, and then what seems like Harlan coming down to get a snack, and then go back to bed. So they set up all these things. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But then later after that, when they're questioning Marta, asking her what happened that night, then it goes, and this is, so I'll start to get into one of the problems I had with this movie, but it gets into like her account of her accidentally, what seems like her giving Harlan the wrong amount of morphine, 100 milligrams of morphine, which is probably. So, and then it's like, it shows how brilliant he is too, because he tells her like how to get away with it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Because he thought of it so quickly. Like, you got to call and you got to go this way out through the window. I don't know.
Yeah. So he figures it out, or he devises a plan pretty perfectly. But then they kind of show you after that, like she lies about it to the detectives. And then like that night she goes back home, and then they pan to like the end of that scene, what happens at the end, and then it shows Harlan like actually killing himself, like about 45 minutes in. And to me, this is probably the biggest problem I had with this movie. Like, why are you showing us that? This is, I kind of disagree with the move to have Harlan, like the truth be that Harlan actually killed himself in the end.
I I thought that whole scene was great. Honestly, I disagree with you. The way he builds tension, not only is Marta's performance great, but like it's a believable scenario that he's.
Oh,
I mean,
100% is. Like,
and I thought it was shocking, like seeing him. Like I didn't think he did that. I don't like the way he did it to himself too. Like I don't know, that was just super shocking. The way it was shot was crazy, and it was honestly like I was pretty sad. And like the movie didn't even try and make me feel that sad. I could tell because of like the music and whatnot that was going on during that scene, but it wasn't like you should feel sad. But yet I felt sad, and I think that's a credit to Marta's performance and just the way that Ryan Johnson's shot that scene because it was just so it was so intense as she like realized like oh my god I killed him
yeah.
and
Well, yeah, I think there's no question that the acting in this movie is fantastic throughout every scene, especially in that scene. I just, to me, I can't quite describe it in a great way, but when you show me that, no one actually killed him, and then it's like, okay, well then we still have an hour and 20 minutes left. Like now I'm kind of, it takes me out of it a bit. That's the one problem. Because like if you would have shown me like, if you'd have shown me like someone actually killed him, not giving it away or anything, but in the end showed me that someone actually did kill him instead of just like what it ends up being like switching the vials and taking away I forget what it is, taking away like the safety thing.
Mhm.
I don't know. I can't pinpoint it, but it kind of took me out of it. And it did the first time I watched this in theaters, I was loving it until that point. I was like, okay, well then no one really killed him, right?
Well, I disagree a little bit because I mean I thought that Marta was the one who killed him. I mean I kind of knew subconsciously like they wouldn't have the main character in this type of movie like kill because like she would have been responsible for his death because they would have found the morphine in his system and they would have tracked it back to her and like I thought it was like a unique take on it because I mean if it was just like I don't know maybe Ransom just went up and stabbed him like I don't think it would have hit the same. But it would have it kind of it would have been like less sneaky and not as like
It is sneaky. It
yeah.
is. I
I
agree.
kind of like that. I don't know.
It is very
It
sneaky.
subverted my expectations and I kind of enjoyed that.
Yeah, it does do that. I don't know. I see that. I see that. We'll get into that a bit more though at the end. There's one thing Harlan says though. He's like talking about Ransom, like right when they're playing that game. By the way, that scene is he's acting hilariously in that scene. I forget who the actor's name is who plays Harlan.
Yeah.
He does a great job though.
Hmm.
It's so weird though how like he's so chill about it when like he thinks that Marta gave him the wrong dosage and he's about to die in like 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Like welcomes it, which is I don't know. I thought that was kind of like haunting in a way.
It was kind of haunting. I mean, there was times like in that scene where he showed like the despair, but then he like was able to put on a brave face for Marta and be like, "This is what you're gonna do," because it shows how much he cares for Marta. Because like Marta was his one true friend in the
Yeah.
family. Like he didn't like his kids. Like the kids were not nice to him. They just wanted him for his money.
Yeah, I agree. But there's one thing he says to about Ransom though. He's talking about how Ransom reminds him of himself a lot. And he says he's like he can't tell the difference between a stage prop and a real knife. Do you remember that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's
So I
about the
realized
ending.
my second watch, I'm like, holy shit, that's literally what happens in the end of the movie. It's just it seems like just such a basic, non-important line, but to jump to the end real quick, that's what happens to Ransom at the end.
I'm glad, I'm glad that he didn't I'm glad that that was one of those details that was left out at the end of the movie, where like they could have easily like I don't know, cut back to that like line from Ransom or
Oh,
line from Harlan. It was one of those that was just like snuck in there, and then you realize on the second
no,
viewing. I
it,
like
I, that's another thing this movie does. It trusts the audience very well.
that.
Trusts that the audience is smart and can figure these things out and remember them.
Hmm.
You know, you know me. I love when movie makers show some respect for their audience. Um,
Go
so
don't
yeah,
tell.
so after that, after it's kind of revealed that Marta pretty much killed him, was gonna get him killed, or so we think till then. By the way, there's good foreshadowing with the dogs as well, where when he's telling her when she comes back later, or when she comes back that the dogs won't bark at you, and then that paralleled with somebody waking up to dogs barking at like 3 a.m. You remember that?
I kind of do. I watched this like a week ago in preparation for this, but
I think it's like Meg or somebody wakes up at 3 a.m. to dogs barking.
yeah, she did do that.
Marta, that when you come back, the dogs won't bark at you. So that's another nice little piece of foreshadowing.
Oh, because that means that Ransom was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, then they're kind of, I forget what happens after that, but then they kind of go back to like Blanc keeps questioning them about like what happened that night. And there's a great scene with all the family. It's like Walt, Joni, Richard, and Linda, and they're talking about politics. And this is what I was talking about earlier, how you buy that these people are family.
Yeah.
And Richard's like, clearly the more right wing opinion, and like everyone's pissed at him. It's just it's a great scene entirely. And they bring Marta over there to like, or like Richard kind of brings Marta over there to say like, oh, I care about immigrants, just
Yeah.
very nice. And then it's just a great thing, or not a great thing, but the entire family the whole time just acts like they're so great, like they
Yeah.
really caring of everybody else.
But you can even but, like the line where it's like it's used for a joke about like, oh, Marta's from you know Uruguay or Paraguay, and like they can't even get where her
Yeah,
family's from. It's just one of those things that shows like these people are full of shit.
yeah. And then there's I think there's a bunch of funny scenes, a bunch of funny lines with Walt. He's like yelling at Harlan's mother. He's like, "We're gonna eat dinner now. Dinner. Do you want dinner now?" Just like yelling right in her ear.
I didn't. One of my things with the movie, I didn't love how like she was used as like a plot device for like seeing people.
Yeah,
I don't really remember it exactly, but how she saw like runs into. I also like didn't think it was like that funny either. Like the stuff of her just standing like super still. That was one of those things that like kind of bugged me. But
yeah. There's a couple things like that, but so yeah. So the next day after she like goes home, and it shows by the way, right when she goes home, it shows the blood splatter on her foot. Which I have another problem with too. With that is like, so in the end of the movie, it's revealed that Blanc, he saw that the first time he saw her, he saw that blood on her shoe and
mhm.
knew that she had something to do with it. But in reality, like, how could he have known that that was something with Harlan? Do you know what I mean? Like that blood could have been from anything.
I mean, it was probably a big leap. Or what are you saying, Mike? Like that it could have been from what, like a
I'm
broken
saying
nose?
so Blanc says, or at the end, Marta's like, "How did you know I had something to do with his murder?" And he's like, from the moment I saw you, I saw the blood on your shoe. This is like at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And my I guess problem with that is like that blood could it's a tiny drop of blood on her shoe.
Well, there was definitely some suspicion because of it. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah, but he says like he knew she for sure had something to do with it because of that. Like obviously there could have been some suspicion, but like I guess I kind of doubt that he would have known.
my theory is that he decided to get close to Marta because he saw the blood, and then from there he was able to see how she has a problem with lying and, use her to find out more information without like his initial interest was because of the blood on the shoe. He didn't know that she was involved because of the blood on the shoe, but he saw the blood on the shoe and thus he wanted to find out more. That's the way I look at it.
That's fair. Yeah. I don't know. That's
But there's a lot of things though that like
consider that.
with this movie that are like a little hard to conceive.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's one of those things where I'm just like, I'll let it go.
That's fair.
The movie does what it means to do, and like tells the story that it wants to tell. I don't really care about.
So yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So then the next morning they're doing the will reading, and this is where they're kind of like looking for clues, and she's like covering her tracks at the same, quite literally, at the same time too. Where the dog like brings the broken piece of the gate or whatever.
Yeah.
She climbed on and she like throws it away in the back. That's another funny scene. She like throws it away in the background. Or the tracks in the mud leading up to the house through the back gate. So yeah, then they get into the will reading. Or no, then Ransom shows up first. I forgot about this. Is a hilarious. I love when
This is funny.
So funny. So he shows up, and then the detectives introduce themselves. So he just kind of looks at them, and then walks away without saying anything.
Yeah.
Blanc comes down, asks him a question. He's like, "What CSI KFC? What is this?" Great line. And then this is what I'm talking about again. It's the family dynamic where he goes in the room.
He just causes problems.
Everyone's just like giving him shit left and right as soon as he walks in there. And then he says to Meg, he's like, "How's that SJW degree coming?" or something like that.
And then he tells everyone to like eat shit. Like, and it's just like, it was one of those things where it was like, I see Chris Evans as Captain America, right? And I think Rian Johnson knows that because he's just like so popular at this point. And like Chris Evans was good for the role, but like the way to introduce him is by having him be a total jerk. You know what I mean? And like by like doing that, it just does a great job of like realizing, oh, this is not Steve Rogers anymore. This is Ransom, and Ransom is a total D-bag.
This is not the Chris Evans
No, it's not.
Yeah, so this is a perfect introduction for Ransom. Then they all get into these arguments because like Walt's like going at him, saying how he's like a failure and worthless, and then like Linda and Richard get pissed at Walt, and then like Walt and Richard start fighting for a little bit. Ransom is eating his cookies on the chair, saying we got to do this more often. Fantastic scene.
It's just super chaotic, and it shows what money can do to a family like that.
Yeah. It does a great job establishing how much their family sucks.
Yeah.
Really. So then they do the will reading. I didn't see this coming at all the first time I saw this.
I didn't either.
The end of the will, it says that everything goes to Marta, like the inheritance, the house, all the money. Yeah, I didn't see that coming either. I thought this was a great twist.
I did too.
Yeah, this is where I give the movie a lot of credit. It just like, it makes sense too. I feel like it makes sense.
It does. And the scene right before it showing how, awful the family is, while Marta's just on the outside looking in. I could just totally see like Harlan like looking down, just laughing, because this is exactly why he gave the money to Marta.
He realized
his ridiculous family who cannot stop fighting and are just so driven by greed and lust for money.
Yeah. And then so up until this point, I kind of liked Linda's character.
I did too.
I thought she was like a nice person. Like I thought she cared for Marta, but then she just attacks her right away.
Yeah.
Calling her a bitch and stuff. It's just like, okay, never mind. I thought at least she would be one of the good ones in the family.
Mm-hmm. Or Joni too. Like I kind of thought like Joni seemed kind of nice, but then we found out like what she did.
Well, earlier though, it's not like when they're setting up all these alibis for like Richard, Joni, or not alibis, like motives for Richard, Joni, and Walt, and Linda's not in there. I'm like, okay, well Linda must be the good one then, right? No.
Nope.
He just goes at Marta, is pissed off. They're all mad. So they all like attack her and mob her in the front. And then
Yeah.
Ransom comes and picks her up, which I'm like, all right, this is interesting.
I mean, it was definitely intentional by Ransom. Like Ransom, like he was like very close to getting away with it. Like he was pretty smart. Like he purposely like didn't like alienate himself from Marta just so that like he could trust Marta and like get to know what's going on.
Mhm.
And um and then like also with like exploding the DNA building or whatever. Like
Oh,
I don't know, he went to like such great lengths to get away with it, and you know, I don't know. I really liked Ransom's character.
I did too. Because you think like, so they go to a restaurant and then he like tricks her into eating a bunch of food to get her to throw up.
Mhm.
Then confesses, or then she confesses to him what happened. And I think it's good. I have mixed feelings about like Ransom's arc in the last hour because they set him up as like, okay, he's a good guy, right? Like
Yeah.
he can help her, but at the same time, like, I don't want to give myself praise. I really don't. I don't want to seem like I saw this whole thing coming. But it's like they set it up, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense that he would do that.
What do you mean? That he would kill?
Like I don't know about you, but I was just the whole time ransom. It's like, okay, well, there's no way he really was fishy to me right in the beginning because like how he's established before that, the scene where he first gets there, like he's a complete asshole, right? He doesn't care about any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it was weird for me when I watched it. I'm like, okay, why is he just Mr. Nice Guy now to Marta?
I mean, it was all like,
Do you know what I'm getting?
yeah. I mean, it was definitely intentional
But
from.
yeah, I know it's intentional, but I just like, you know, I feel like you're supposed to believe him that he's trying to help her, right?
Yeah.
I don't. Like I didn't from the beginning because, there's just no reason that he would help her. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I think you could kind of trust him though, because we don't see him interact with the family that much until he shows up later in the film. And sometimes this seems like the perfect place for Marta's down on her luck. She needs someone to come and help her out, and this is where Ransom enters in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like story wise, it makes sense that this would be the character who gives Marta a push into like figuring it out. Instead, and like she all like Ransom also hates the rest of his family members, and that's like kind of why I think I kind of bought it at the first time, but I kind of also agree with you, Mike, that it seemed a little suspect.
Yeah, that like I kind of bought it too, but it's like, okay, how would he just do this 180 into being like a really nice person?
I didn't think it was I didn't think it was a 180. I thought it was more of just like he he like he kind of seemed like a nice person because he just hated his family. Like maybe he was a nice person outside of his family rather than just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, he also like was just a trust fund guy who never worked a day in his life. So
Yeah.
I can kind of see it.
Trust fund. He's just he's just a rich asshole pretty much. And that's
Yeah,
how I saw him the time. Like I had a hard time believing that he was actually trying to help her. But I
yeah,
don't
I get
know.
that.
So yeah, then later they have like the whole family like surrounds Meg when she's calling Marta to
Mhm.
ask her to give inheritance back. And I feel like Meg was the only one of them who was like actually deserving of getting some of the inheritance. Um, I think in
It's
the
not
end,
like a real team,
yeah,
like the vape with the vaping and like.
that's the actor from 13 Reasons Why, right?
Oh, I think it is.
I think it's
I
the
think it
same.
is. I haven't
Um,
watched that show, but I know. I think I know who she is.
So yeah, I think they would have, I think in the end, she probably would have paid for Meg's college.
Yeah.
Just they didn't throw that in there, but I feel like that's something you could assume just
Yeah.
based on the relationship. Um, let's see. So yeah, then she kind of so then Blanc finds or Marta's like telling Ransom about how Blanc found some evidence.
Yeah.
And then he's like, or like they found mud in front of the room leading from the window up to the stairs. And then Ransom's like kind of pissed about it. Like he seems mad because and this is another good thing the movie does. He seems mad because it's like he's thinking about them and how this kind of ruins their motives or how this ruins their plan. But he's really just mad about himself because he realizes that's the mud I brought in when I snuck up there.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, and then let's see. Then back at her house the next morning, um, all the press show up. Everyone's there.
Yeah. And then Walter comes, and Walter's just like
Walt
trying to
comes.
be the nice guy, and then he just like turns on her super quickly.
He tries to bully her into giving him the money or giving back the inheritance.
And that like even separates like Marta from the family even more because like Walt seemed like the nice guy, like the most you know guy she could connect with from the family. You know what I mean? And when he tries to bully her, it just separates her from even more. It's like there's no way I'm giving this back.
Yeah, and
So
she
I think
doesn't.
it's an important scene.
I like how she stands up to him too. She's like, "Well, they're my lawyers now,
Yeah.
my resources."
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really. He can't respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Yeah. So then after that, the evidence building burned down. Ransom goes. She drives with Ransom to there. Um. Again, it seems like he's just a bystander in all this. He seems confused. So I guess in that sense, it's hard to buy, or it's easy to buy that Ransom's trying to help her.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and all his interactions with Marta, it seems like he cares for the most part. But then they do the car chase when Blanc shows up, and he like sees their car from a distance,
Yeah.
and then it's a pretty funny car chase too. When she's like, are you stepping down on the gas? And then she's like, this is the fastest car can go. Whatever. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. It feels real again.
Yeah. It doesn't
Not all cars that are like made like that can, rip from 0 to 90 on a highway. You know what I mean?
like, is this the fastest we can go? So that's a pretty funny scene there. And then so they eventually Blanc and the other detectives catch up to him and they arrest Ransom.
Mhm.
Which is like, okay, a little unexpected. I think
Which like, and then that sets up for the twist, at the end, where it's like actually is Ransom. You know what I mean? Because like when they arrest him, I'm like, okay, it's probably not Ransom, and it turns out to be Ransom.
no, I don't know. I'm conflicted. I get conflicted with this entire like last hour because one of the problems I have with it is like they spend all this time with Ransom and Marta, right? And they spent that time at the beginning with all the other characters. And I think the problem I have with this is that it's obvious in the sense that Rian Johnson couldn't have just turned back to the characters in the beginning and say like, okay, if I just pull one of them out from then and say like, oh, they did this, they were the mastermind of it.
Yeah.
It would have been like kind of cheap in a way, you
Yeah.
know? Because then it's like, okay, it's this character we don't really know all that well was really behind it all. And then
So yeah, I know what you mean because by completely disregarding those characters and like not giving them the screen time that they need at the
in
end
the
of the movie.
last hour and 15 minutes too. That's the problem I have with it. I like spending this time with Ransom's character because I think the dynamic that he has with Marta is great. Like it's all great, but when you spend too much time with him, it's like, okay, well, he's established as one of the main characters, and if you pull one of the characters from the beginning and say they did it all, it wouldn't make a ton of sense,
So
right?
did you think it was Ransom for sure? Your first viewing?
Honestly, I thought it was Ransom the whole time. He's
Yeah.
set up as like, or not that he's set up like it, because they set him up like he's supposed to be Marta's friend, but it's just like it's the way he's used in the last hour that it's like, okay, well, it would be cheap if it were anyone else,
No, I
right?
get that. That makes sense. I think if they would have given a little more screen time to the other characters near the end of the movie, then I don't know how they would have done it, but then that might have made the twist a little more, unexpecting, I guess, or
Yeah.
unexpected.
And there's a lot of layers to this too. And it's like, okay, like there's a lot of layers that goes into the planning for this, right? And it doesn't seem like any of the characters that are set up in the beginning could have gone to any of those lengths. You
Hmm.
know, like, when Blanc is having his massive monologue at the end, talking about how Ransom planned this entire thing, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense because none of the other characters would have done that, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's where I get into my biggest problem with this movie is that I don't think, on the surface, it seems well hidden that it's Ransom, but just like thinking about his place in the movie logistically, that's where it kind of ruined it for me because I'm like, okay, well, it kind of has to be Ransom.
I mean, I think near the end is where like when they're at the DNA place, then it gets a little more obvious. You know what I mean? Because like I think it's pretty well hidden until after the scene where Ransom and Marta are eating dinner. Before that, I thought that was pretty well hidden. Like I honestly didn't have any clue. But until, like you said, we started to spend more and more time with Marta and Ransom.
Before it reveals that it's Ransom in the end, it's like, okay, I think it's Ransom. I don't know. That's it. That's at least what I thought.
Yeah.
Um, but then they do like the whole thing with Fran too. And I feel like this is where I don't like this as much because then it's like, okay, I feel like part of me feels like Ryan Johnson just got to that point and realized I need to do something to make Ransom seem like more of an asshole, more of a bad guy. So he's like, okay, I'll just kill Fran, right? And add that to his list of things and add that to, I mean, getting Harlan killed. I don't think the Fran thing was necessary, honestly.
Wait, so you're saying Ryan Johnson killed another character unnecessarily, almost like Snoke?
Okay, well, we don't need to venture to. I'm not venturing,
I'm sorry. Okay,
but I know there's still a lot of salt there. But
there is a lot of salt.
I don't know. What do you think about this? What do you think about the
I
whole
always thought that was
Fran blackmail? We can call it.
a little weird. It felt a little. The whole plot at the end felt a little too chaotic.
It
You know,
is really. This is something I'm really starting to realize. It's hard to figure. It's hard to like recap everything in the end of
especially
it.
near the end, like the first part, like up until like the will or after the will, and like when first Ransom and Marta get together,
Yeah,
it's pretty easy to follow. And I think the last hour, like hour and 15 minutes, are still enjoyable, mostly because Marta and Ransom have good chemistry, and Blanc is still funny, and I mean, like the stuff with Fran is still like you can kind of follow it, but it's not nearly as good as the first half, in my
yeah.
opinion.
The first half is set up perfectly
Yeah.
between all the characters. And I think like while there's so much chaos going on, but it's between three characters. It's between Blanc, Marta, and Ransom. And then it's like, okay, there's so much chaos, but you also like, you know,
What would
they
have been a great twist if it was Blanc? Just saying.
I mean,
That would
yeah,
have been out of nowhere.
yeah. With the whole who hired him, it's like he really hired himself.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, then they go. I got a little confused. Oh, by the way, the donut hole quote when they're driving to the laundromat, he's like trying to sound it out in his head. He's like, it's a hole inside a donut, not a bigger donut.
That's what I mean about Blanc being an idiot. Like he acts like an idiot sometimes, and then he just goes and when he
Yeah.
gets in the monologue, like that part was great. Like I kind of forget what
Oh,
happened.
wait, no, hang on. Sorry. Before that, though, this is another problem I have. when she's like on Fran's dead body, and Fran's saying like Hugh did this, but it sounds like you did this.
Nah.
I kind of had a problem with. I was like, okay, that's a little. I don't know. Maybe
I mean,
that's
I
just
don't know. It's a little cheap, but like again, that's kind of what the movie's going for. You just got to have the movie's again not taking itself too seriously. It's
yeah.
not
Maybe
like this.
too much of a hard ass, but
I know what you mean. It's a little. I mean, it's one of those things where you just kind of like got to suspend your belief
that's
and
fair.
enjoyment of the movie.
Um.
Definitely something to factor in, though.
So yeah, the final monologue. You want to start? You want to start by talking about that?
I mean, I thought that was great. His Daniel Craig's delivery was great. The way it cut back and forth from, I mean, this is just like so simple, just not think of it, but like cutting back and forth with the monologue over, what Ransom actually did to Ransom's reaction, to Marta's reaction, to the cops' reaction, back to what Ransom actually did. Like, I don't know, that was just so shot and edited perfectly. And I really like that. But like I just think, I don't know, I really liked that scene. Also, when Ransom was like, got like really mad, was like, you just had her confession. Like, he like yelled that at Blanc, and I don't know, that was like, okay, it's definitely him. Like, that's when I knew, like, okay, it's definitely him.
Yeah, well, it's just like it's sad too because of it. It's like it's sad, but to me it wasn't that. It's supposed to be sad, but to me it wasn't that sad because it's like supposed to show how much he's betraying Marta, how
Hmm.
he wants them to just settle on her being the killer.
Yeah.
It's sad, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I expect that because I know he's an asshole. Like from
Yeah.
what he showed me by the first time he showed up, like that doesn't surprise me that he would do that.
No, I get that. That makes sense.
And then earlier too, when they first arrest him, they bring him in for questioning. And this is when Blanc and Marta are like waiting at the hospital or whatever. And Blanc says that he spilled Marta's entire confession, told him about everything she told him. It's like, all right, I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
Ransom's an asshole to me the entire movie.
Yeah. I like how he just doesn't believe it either, and just like then goes on his monologue.
Yeah. So yeah, I won't lie, I got kind of confused the first time I saw it in theaters of like how Ransom masterminded this whole plan.
He was really close.
Like really in depth.
Yeah.
Like the toxicology reports, the blackmail notes, like going there during the funeral. Um,
And then I don't remember how this happens, but then like Marta pukes on him.
oh,
Or
Fran, when the hospital calls her and she's like, to tell her that Fran died, but she lies about it,
yeah.
which I think is to like set up Ransom.
Yeah, and then he has the what's it called? The confession on tape.
Yeah.
Which then is a nice callback because it's like we will record every like it's like this little throwaway line at the beginning. It's like we will record every interview. Like this was the one time Ransom got interviewed. And it was at the end of the movie. You know
That's
what I
true.
mean?
Think about that. A lot of great foreshadowing throughout the entire thing.
So then she pukes on Ransom, which honestly was just so gross. Like, I don't know. I'm not like afraid of like puking and stuff like that, but like that was nasty. Like I know, Mike, you're afraid of throwing up, Mike. So what do you think of that scene?
It was good though. Like again, well actually I shouldn't say it was good because I kind of had a problem with the whole throw up when lying thing.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of interesting how they used it in the end when he
Mhm.
throws up on her, but like at the same time it's like
Yeah, I get that.
device, but okay.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. But
And then he grabbed the knife, and I was like, when they went into slow mo, I was like, okay, she's not gonna die. Like, there's no way they're killing Marta with the knife, or like I thought Blanc was gonna come out of nowhere.
and that's another problem I have too. It's just like with the whole movie in general. It's like they're making you question if Marta did it or not. But it's like, okay, you got to remember the reality of the situation. Like, this is a PG-13 Thanksgiving family movie. They're not going to have Marta, who's like some nice, like the hero of this story, basically, as a family at home. They're not going to have her be the killer in the end, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's just how I saw it. I'm like, I didn't expect Marta to be the killer, and they were like making you question that.
yeah. Still though, you can enjoy it for what it is.
Oh yeah,
I also like, so going past that, if you don't have anything more, like you said, uh, the callback to the fake knife, I thought that was a good twist though. And um, as I thought a couple funny things, like as Ransom's being taken away, his dad's like trying to bribe the police officer, like trying to already bail him out. And then also like she grabs the note and it's hidden ink. And then it just says like he cheated, like, or something like that. And
and then
like,
it cuts away, then it cuts back. He's like a black guy or something.
oh, he's
Richard,
the black guy. Because didn't he get punched by someone?
I don't know. I thought it was implying that like Linda punched him or something, or someone punched him when it cut away.
Yeah, I don't remember.
One
And
thing though,
then,
the last thing I want to touch on though, that I think is another great note of this, it's like when Ransom, like right before he's about to be taken away, before he tries to stab her, um, he says like, you think you can take our inheritance away, our birthright, our blood? And it's like he's separating himself from the family the whole time, and then in the end he like talks about himself as a member of the family, like this is our right to this inheritance and this will, and
yeah.
he just like the rest of them.
Mhm.
I like that. I think that was a good way to finish up his character.
And then
I,
Blanc also put him in check earlier. He was like, "This was like built from slaves. Like this isn't yours. Like this is, you guys are despicable." And like, I don't know. Blanc
it's
was a good character too. Like
started
he,
off great. It's a good message.
he was really smart, but also like had a foot in reality, if that makes sense. Like he was like a genius who also felt really normal.
Yeah.
I liked all these characters, and I thought the ending was kind of like it gave me a little smirk.
Yeah.
Where she's with the mug. I don't remember what it said, but she's like sipping on the mug.
My house, my rules.
Yeah, like that's kind of cool.
One of the opening shots of the movie too. It's of that mug.
Oh yeah, that's. I mean, again, another great callback. This movie
Yeah.
has so many of those.
So, all right, I guess we'll get into some ratings then. You want to go first?
Um, I think I will. So I like this movie a lot. It's one of those movies that you can. It's really rewatchable. You can watch it with your family. I'm actually thinking about watching it again with my dad because my dad hasn't seen it, and my little brother loves it. My mom loves it, and again, it's just a great family movie that has great performances, great cinematography, great set, and also the music. We didn't talk about this, but the music throughout it's like pretty good
It's
because it's like it's eerie, yet it's also comical. You know what I mean?
it's not too in your face either.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I think this movie nailed everything that I was trying to go for, but I do have some problems with the movie because like I think a movie like this could be a 10 out of a 10. Probably
I
if it was R and didn't have as many restrictions for what I was going for. So for that reason, I'd probably give it an 8.1 or no 8.2. I'll go 8.2 out of 10.
Yeah, that's fair. I honestly could not agree more. I think when you look at the acting, the set design, all the characters, how the characters are set up, or how the characters are foreshadowed, set up, whatever. This this had the blueprint to be a 10 out of 10 movie, or like at least a 9.5 out of 10. Which it's kind of a bummer too, because I would definitely rate it lower than that based off of what I mentioned. Just like the last hour of it, kind of my biggest issue is how they use the characters.
Mm-hmm.
That's what drags it down for me. Um, the twist, I feel like the twist could have been a lot more. I don't know how, but I feel like it didn't surprise me as much as I wanted it to. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, the twist being that Ransom was the mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't hit as much. First time I watched it, I was like, okay. Second time, I was still like, okay. But um, I'm gonna give this. I think I'm gonna give this an 8.6 out of 10.
That's fair.
I think this is a super rewatchable movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's some of the best performance. It's some great performances, honestly.
Yeah.
There's not a single bad performance in this movie.
Everything's just very well done. I don't
It's
know.
well done.
It could have been better though.
It
So
could have been,
that's why we're both in the eights.
but even though we're both in the eights, I would still highly recommend you watch this.
Yeah, this is
like
this
more
is
than I
one
would with
to
other eights. Honestly, this is a fun movie.
watch. Mhm. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So that pretty much wraps it up. We'll be back next week. We were a day late on the upload, but things happen. Mort couldn't be with us today. Hopefully he'll be back next week. We're thinking about maybe doing a little bit, more uploads. If maybe two of us are around, we might do like 30 to 40-minute episodes. We just got so much time on our hands that we want to find a way to
Need content.
schedules. Black Ops 2 at night only just does so much for us. We got to find things to do during the day.
We need, yeah, I completely agree.
So, thanks again for watching or listening. Follow us on social media, Twitter @WBuzzin. Mike's putting out some great content there. Nothing borderline yet, which is good. So we are not canceled yet, which is good, and I'm very happy about that.
Daily reviews too. Something
Daily movie reviews that Mike's checking out every day, which is great. At What Is the Buzz on Instagram, and then Spotify and YouTube, What's Buzzin'. So yeah, thanks again. Until next time, keep buzzing.